So she's like, why don't I write 40 different characters with a forbidden love thing going on? I don't know how to rate this book, but I read it, and I read it. Hello, and welcome to another edition of a monthly wrap-up. I feel like I said this last year, and I might have said this about February as well. I feel like March was so long, because looking back at the books, I mean, you know, I don't remember things, but especially the books that I read at the beginning of this month, I had to look them up again. I had no idea what I had read, but it was a mixed bag this month. But before we dive into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5 books, gotta give a shout out to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. You know Book of the Month. It is a service that has people comb through hundreds of new releases to pick out some of the absolute top ones in all different genres, and then you can pay one low controlled price every single month, and you can get one or more books if you choose to. They're all going to be hardcover, they're all going to be new releases. Some are by authors that you've probably heard of and love, some are completely new authors, so it's a really cool mixed bag. I've had some excellent books from them, and you can use my code CARI to get your first book for $9.99. Super easy to cancel also if you're just not feeling the books for a particular month. They're a really cool service, so thank you so much to Book of the Month. I actually have 2 books that I read from them this month. What are the books for, what month is this? Will these be for April? Okay, April books. The first one is The Good Left Undone, which seems to be kind of a family drama about the eldest woman in this Italian family who starts to tell the story about her mother and the father that she never knew, who was actually Scottish. And so there's 2 different timelines going on with the current woman who is kind of on her deathbed going through her life and thinking about her life, and then we also join her mother in Scotland actually, and talking about like the Italians who lived in Scotland during World War II and stuff like that. I don't know, intriguing, I'm interested. That's your first book. Next up is Bittersweet, which is actually a nonfiction book, How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole. And it's just about celebrating sadness, like talking about why do we like sad songs and why do we like sad movies and why that's important and why we shouldn't just celebrate happiness as like the goal. We should also see the importance of sorrow and longing. Next is True Biz, which is about a bunch of different characters at a school for the deaf. It's about students, it's about principals. It seems really interesting, just talking about like living with a disability and stuff like that. Seem like just the inside of the book cover has me putting this on my to read list next up. So next is Like a Sister, which seems like it's a kind of mystery story about a reality TV star who dies, and they're kind of like, it's a black woman who was on reality TV. Yeah, she died of an overdose, and the police just kind of like, put it away. But her sister, who she hasn't spoken to in 2 years, is like, no, this death is not that easy, and she starts to look into it. So we go along with her sister to uncover kind of their family history, and also how did her sister actually die. And last but not least is Kaiki, which seems like it is a fantasy. I think it's fantasy. I mean, it says magic, but I don't know if it's like inner magic or like real magic. Anyway, it is set in the kingdom of Kekaya. And it looks like it's just going to be a lot of mythology. We're following this princess who is living a pretty comfy princess life until her father banishes her mother and then sets her up in a marriage. And she's like, what the heck? That's not the life I want to live. And so she changes that. And it's a thick one, but I'm actually very excited to try this out as well. I love the cover. So those are the books. Once again, you can use my code CARI to get your first book, any of these, for $9.99. Thank you to Book of the Month as always. Let's dive into what I read this month. Here we go. The first book I read, which was recommended to me by some of you guys, is a young adult fantasy standalone called Down Comes the Night. And this book wasn't like a favorite. It didn't knock my socks off, but it checked the boxes that I needed it to check, and it kind of got me out of a reading funk. So if you are kind of just like not sure what to read next, you want a quick book that's a standalone but it still has like world building and relationships and stuff like that, I thought that this did what I wanted it to do. So it is about a world in which there are 3 different countries, 2 of which seem to have magic, 1 doesn't. The 2 that have magic are constantly fighting. They've been at war for like centuries. Then the one without magic like doesn't really get involved because I guess geographically it's difficult to conquer because there are like I don't know. But they're pretty much just like living their life watching these people beat each other up. And so we follow our main character whose name is Ren, and she is the niece of the current queen of one of the magic countries called Danu, I think. She has magic. She's a healer. And when her mother passed away, she was orphaned and she was sent to a convent to train to be like a healer, basically. And she absolutely hated it. So eventually her aunt, the queen, let her join like the queen's guard, like the army kind of thing. And we get the vibe real quick that her aunt, for whatever reason, does not like Ren. So she makes a lot of slip-ups because she's really empathetic, and because of that has a very difficult time listening to the queen's orders. Like she tends to help the prisoners of war and stuff like that. Like she doesn't like to see people in pain, so it gets her in a lot of trouble, to the point where in the beginning of the book something occurs and she is actually fired from her job and sent to the convent again, and she would rather die than stay there. So when she gets a letter from this like regal figure, like a lord or something from the non-magic country, asking if he could take her over there and have her heal one of his family members, she jumps on it. She runs away. They send a carriage. She gets there, and it is not what it seems. There is a patient there waiting for her to be healed, but there are so many secrets. The house is creepy. There's like clearly like a curse or just something is wrong. There's also in the background, the war has technically been called off, but now all of these soldiers are just turning up killed. There's a lot of like political intrigue, enemies to lovers, magic, mystery. I don't know. Like I said, it just kind of ticked all the boxes that I wanted it to. I thought it was quite sweet. I do think that the beginning was a little bit bumpy, but once you actually get like into the house, I think that it picks up. And yeah, so if you're just looking for a little fantasy standalone that you haven't read yet, Down Comes the Night was a good way to start the month, I think. So, oh my god, next up is Gilded, and I actually have to look up these people's names. Hold on. No, I don't. You know what? We never look up names, right? So I read Gilded, which is by Marissa Meyer, the queen of retelling fairy tales. She did the Lunar Chronicles. She did Heartless, which I made a whole video about, which was an Alice in Wonderland retelling. She's good at this. So she seems to be running out of fairy tales to retell, because Gilded is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. And when people told me that, I was like, what? It made me realize how much of Rumpelstiltskin I did not remember. The only thing I remember is that you have to guess Rumpelstiltskin's name. He wanted your firstborn child, and then something about spinning straw into gold. That's all I remembered. Those elements are there, but it's anyway, it's a loose retelling, okay? So we first start off in this small village where our main girl lives, and she has lived there her whole life, but she's never really like made friends, because legend has it that her father really loved her mother, and in order to get her to marry him, he like made a deal with one of the like gods, I guess. I don't know. They get married because the god willed it, and then they have a child, and that child was cursed with like storytelling or like lying or something. And so that is our main girl. She grows up and she's just kind of like weird because she always is telling weird stories, and no one can tell, like, are you just lying? Like, if someone asks her, like, if she went to the store and she comes home and her dad is like, where did you go? Instead of saying the store, she would be like, I went on this adventure, you know? It's hard for her to make friends. She finds her calling working at the school because kids love to hear stories. So she has like, her friends in town are all like these 5-year-olds, which I think is really funny. But they also have the Fae, who live kind of on the other side of the veil, right? And on every full moon, the hunt comes through. So the kind of in fairy mythology, there's the hunt, which is like all of the fairies get on these horses and run through the night and whatever. And so every month on the full moon, the town like locks down. You're supposed to stuff your ears with stuff so that when the fairies call you to come out to play, you don't do it, whatever. One night she is getting ready for the hunt when she hears someone like trying to get into her basement. And so she goes to check on what it is, and it's a couple of these like elf people trying to hide from the fairies. And so she helps them, but accidentally gets discovered by the Fae, and she has to like lie her way out of that situation. That lie ropes her into another situation, ropes her into another situation. She ends up being at the Fae castle because now the king thinks that she can spin straw into gold. This is where Rumpelstiltskin comes in. There's this weird ghost boy that keeps showing up in her prison cell. It becomes like this weird little romance. I didn't like this book until about 50% of the way through. I felt like nothing was happening until about 50% of the way through. And then things do start to happen, and it's like the romance is cute, and then we get introduced to a mystery because Gilded isn't a standalone like I thought it was. So at the very end, there's this element of mystery, but I just felt like the story wasn't really happening, you know? The only part that I really liked, again, was the romance, and then I felt like the romance was super weird, and then I thought the ending took a really weird turn. Overall, like, if you're willing, if you have time, I don't want to say time to waste, but like, if you're willing to take a chance on a book that you're probably not gonna like, but it's intriguing in a weird way because it's just like, I feel like maybe if you like Naomi Novik's Uprooted or Spinning Silver, it gave me kind of those vibes. It was like definitely a very fairy tale-esque kind of book. You might like it. It wasn't my fave for sure. It was very slow and then it got very fast. So I don't know how to rate this book, but I read it and I read it. And I will read the second one because now the ending is such a mess that I'm like, I need to know what's going on, you know? So that's Gilded. That's Gilded for you. Next up is a book I'm so sad to talk about. I feel like it's gotta be 2 years ago now at this point, or was it just a year ago? I read the first 3 books of a series called The Black Witch. The Black Witch is kind of, it got buried in controversy because someone took a bunch of quotes, like not even out of context, like they were in context and they just like completely didn't comprehend them and started this horrible like canceling campaign against this book. It's so stupid. I'm not going to go too far into it, but this book is about a world that has pretty much every fantastical being. There are fae, there are werewolves, etc. There is like the one main country that we focus on, or kingdom or whatever, and they are very like conservative, very religious, and very racist. And our main character comes from that country, and she like was raised in the countryside, blah blah blah, very sheltered. And so the first book is her going to college, being surrounded by people who are not her race, and like coming out of that and having to do work and like actually go to the library and read history books from other points of view and like genuinely trying to break through all of her prejudices that she was raised with. And so for people to like call the book a racist book, I was just like, I digress. Anyway, I thought the first two books were so good in terms of the romance. Like, if you like yearning, oh my god, this book did it. It's definitely a little problematic. Like, I do think that there's a lot of like woe is me kind, not like reverse racism kind of things, but like the author definitely points out that like this girl, even though she was like raised racist, she also had a hard life. So the people hating on her are like also in the wrong, because like, aren't we all human? Like, you should. So like, I do think that it wasn't as nuanced as it should have been, but I don't think it was as problematic as people were trying to make it to be. And at the end of the day, everyone was learning from each other and breaking through all of their prejudices and, you know, giving each other a chance and stuff like that. So anyway, first two books I thought great. Third book, absolutely written simply to give us a horrible love triangle that, god damn it. Did I still kind of enjoy it? Yeah, but I was holding on by a thread. And then the fourth book, it surprised me because I had pre-ordered it and she pushed this book back like months and months and months and months and months. And so I remember getting the email like, your book is here, and I was like, oh shit, I have to like reread the whole series because I forgot it all. Anyway, I read Demon Tide. I don't know who pressured her into making so many books in this series. Like, it really feels like she's just stretching it out when it absolutely could have been ended in 3, because this book was a mess and I was like rooting for it so hard. It's kind of a problem like with how Crescent City is on the track towards, where there are so many characters, and in the first two books that was okay because they were all a team and working together, but now they're all separated. Like, literally every single character is scattered in a completely different place, but we're still following every character. So it was like every chapter was a different character, but they're all doing the same thing. Every single one of them has like a forbidden love story that, like, lucky for them, is always requited. So like, they both love each other but they just can't be together, kind of thing. Because she knows that she can write yearning, so she's like, why don't I write 40 different characters with a forbidden love thing going on? The way that the love triangle was wrapped up, I felt like I dreamed it at that point. Like, I don't know what happened in the book because I was reading it and I was trying so hard to like follow the plot, and I was so frustrated and bored. And that was the book that I was absolutely most looking forward to, and I'm like more than disappointed. I'm just so upset. So I don't even know if I'll finish it because like, I genuinely don't know what happened in the fourth book, and it'd be really great if someone could make a 3-hour video telling me what happened in that book, because I can't. I physically can't. I'm so sad. But anyway, that's the Black Witch series, number 4 out of 5. I thought this was supposed to be the last book, but here we are, so. Next up we have a memoir, which is totally, this book I feel like is really outside of what I have been reading for the past like year. This is the Chronology of Water. Yeah, it's a memoir of Lydia Yuknovich. She was going to be an Olympic swimmer, and then that just didn't happen. This is one of those books where like, I'm going to talk about it in another book that I read this month, but like, the plot almost doesn't matter. It's literally just like a time in her life. But the way that she writes, I underlined so much of this book, which is why I bought it a physical copy, because I knew I wanted to underline it, and I prefer underlining rather than highlighting. Anyway, I thought that the writing was just incredible. She struggles with so much drug addiction, alcohol addiction. She has kind of, I would say, she doesn't like explicitly say this, but I think she has like an adrenaline addiction. She does a lot of horrible things. She burglarizes and assaults people, and you know, then she ends up finding writing and she starts going into that world and finding that that's like, I guess, a healthy addiction for her. I just thought that it was really just like a really beautiful book. And I said this in another video, but I feel like this book was the kind of writing that I read a lot more in college. And in college is when I felt like I wrote the most, and like I kind of wrote the stuff that I was most proud of in college, because I was surrounding myself with writing kind of like this. It's definitely adult, it's definitely like really dark themes, quite graphic, but if you're interested, the Chronology of Water. After that, I read Gallant by V.E. Schwab. She did the dang thing. So you guys know that I really loved the series A Darker Shade of Magic. And then I also liked Villains, or whatever her other series is. Like, I like her books. I like her books, but I really didn't like Addie LaRue. And so with Gallant, I was sort of nervous about it because I didn't want to suddenly start not liking V.E. Schwab's work. But she did it. So Addie, I felt like Addie LaRue was trying to be this big thing, like this really amazing story, right? And with Gallant, it just felt like she was trying to tell a quick little story, like something I would have read when I was a kid, and that's it. It wasn't trying to be this giant thing, and I think that helped it so much because it's like a little Victorian childhood story. It's, not life-changing, but it did what it wanted to do. It's about a girl who lives in an orphanage, and we don't know much about her, but she can see ghouls. Yeah, she just like sees dead people all the time. And she's also mute for whatever reason. And so her life at the orphanage is really hard because instead of people learning to sign in order to understand her when she signs or whatever, they are just like, you're super weird, why don't you just try and speak? Like, nobody tries to communicate with her, so she really lives in this like little world.
Sorry, I need to cable.
I love you. I'm a good husband.
Anyway, she gets a letter from her family and she's like, I am an orphan. How does that work? Yeah, it turns out she has family and they are inviting her back. Her uncle is inviting her back to her home, her like family ancestral home, which they call Gallant. And that seems great. This seems like a great adventure, right? Wait a second. Where have we heard that name before? Oh yeah. The only thing that she has from her life before the orphanage is this journal written by her mother, and it's kind of nonsensical. There's a lot of really weird drawings in it. Like, it's very clear that her mother really loved her father, and then her father died right before our main girl was born, and it just kind of made her mother go insane. And so the journal kind of chronicles her kind of, loss of sanity. It seems like the journal is written to her father, but there is a note directly to our main girl, Olivia. I remember her name. Our main girl, Olivia. And it says, like, you will always be safe as long as you stay away from Gallant. But she's like, I can't, like, there's nothing else I can do in this world. I have no skills. So, like, yeah, if my uncle wants to take me home, I'm going to go to my uncle's house. And she thinks that this is also a key to finding her mother because she's just, like, not convinced that her mother is dead. And so we go to Gallant, and there are some family secrets. It's V.E. Schwab, so it's going to be, like, about dead people and ghosts and stuff like that. So yeah, I just thought, like I said, it was very much like this young Victorian creepy house kind of story that just, it was quick, it was fine. It wasn't amazing, but I thought it was interesting. Cool imagery always in her books, I think, is what gets me. So she just did a really good job of creating this really cool aesthetic and vibe. So if you're looking for something, I don't know if I'd buy it, but it was a fun, quick read, so Gallant. Next up, I'm so sad to talk about this book. You guys, if you watched my video from last month, you know that I was so hyped about this book. This is the Cartographers. The the premise. So good. So the premise of this book, without any spoilers, is our main girl used to work at the New York Public Library with her father. They are both cartographers. Her father is like a legendary cartographer, and she was like an intern under him, but was going to get hired, whatever. They're obsessed with maps, right? There was an argument, an incident, blah, 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 concerning particularly this one random ass map that doesn't seem to be important, but we'll learn otherwise. He, like, flips a switch. Her dad, like, kind of goes crazy and, like, fires her, tells her never to come near him ever again. And so she, like, hasn't spoken to her father in 5 or 6 years or something like that. Then she gets called into the New York Public Library again because her father was murdered. And in his hand is that map that they were arguing about, this like crappy gas station upstate New York highway map, like of no importance it seems. She grabs it, things start to be weird, she feels like she's being followed, she does more research into this map and finds out that every copy of it on Earth has been stolen or whatever. There's like this weird string of murders. There's this weird community called the cartographers. So interesting. Such good vibes. I love things set in libraries. It was so interesting, and I learned a lot about like all the different aspects of cartography and stuff like that. What I didn't like about this book is it just got so weird. Like, she ends up during her investigation into her father's death, she meets her father's friends, and they like tell their version of their story because she doesn't know anything about her father really, or her mother who died when she was very young. In the story, they're supposed to be like talking to our main girl, right? And being like, oh yes, when I knew your mother, and then go off on the story. But instead, they like go into these weird details talking about like their love lives and their affairs and stuff like that, which I feel like they might not have told this girl. I don't know, it just seemed like it didn't make sense. It didn't flow. And then once the twist happens, I thought the twist was interesting, but then once like the second part of the twist happens, I thought that it was just no way. There's just no way. Like, I think that the way that it ended, I don't want to spoil it, but like I was just so unimpressed by it. I'm so sad because it had so much potential. I thought that one of the characters, you find out his identity really quick, like within probably the first 20 pages, I knew who one of the people was supposed to be. Like, I'm so mad because the premise, like I said, so good. I just wish that they had literally just changed. I think if they had just changed the ending, it would have been so much better. Oh god, it was just so stupid. It just didn't make sense. I can't say anymore because literally all I have to say is that I'm upset about it, but that's the cartographers. Let me know what you thought. I just feel betrayed because the cover and the premise was so good. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Next up, real quick, I was on vacation, so I did a little reread of Just Kids. I read this a couple years ago and I haven't read it since. This is a memoir by the wonderful Patti Smith, and it is about her life as she moves to New York City and tries to just be an artist. She meets Robert Mapplethorpe, who is most famous for his photography, but this is, before they've made any kind of names for themselves. And it just chronicles their lives. It's so beautiful and so full of love, and like I think that Patti Smith really appreciates like these tiny little moments, and she makes them seem so big and so precious. I think precious is a good word. Like, she just really like honors these tiny little things. It will make you want to like call your friends and tell them that you love them. Like, the amount of love that is in this book, especially between her and Robert, it's just like it's such a good book. So definitely, if you haven't read it yet, Just Kids, please read. And last up, I actually read this last night. Today is April 1st as I'm filming this, so I did read this in March. Reckless Girls. I was kind of feeling like I was in a little bit of a reading slump after Cartographers. Just Kids helped me, but like as far as picking up a new book, I was kind of just like, and so I got this. This is from Book of the Month in January. But I was like, you know, a thriller sounds pretty okay right now. And this is like a deserted island kind of thriller, or is it? And yeah, I mean, it was okay. It did the job. It was a deserted island thriller. It's basically about our main girl named Lux, and she has moved to Maui with her recent, like, just like 6-month, like fresh relationship with her boyfriend Nico, and they are saving up money to fix up their boat, Nico's boat. And they are gonna just travel the world by boat. One day, Nico gets an offer from these 2 college girls who are like, we want to go to this weird island. Can you take us? We'll pay you like $50K. Like, Lux can come too. Bring your girlfriend. And he's like, I mean, with that money, we could go. Like, after this one trip, we could be set to travel the world. And so they end up going. Their destination is this island called Murrow Island. And I don't actually know if it's real. I should check that out, because within this book, there are little bits of like Wikipedia articles or like old letters from World War II talking, like giving us a little bit more info about this island that they go to, which is allegedly cursed because there was a shipwreck there and like the crew had to resort to cannibalism to survive and stuff like that. It's just like bad energy around it. But it's also super deserted, and so if you want to have like this incredible private island experience, why not go there? So they get there and things are not what they seem. Things are eerie. It wasn't like as suspenseful as I was hoping it would be, but like it is definitely like you're just watching these people have a nice time on a deserted island and you're just like waiting for something bad to happen. And then when something bad happens, I thought that the twist wasn't good based on like what we know of the character, like when everything goes down. I don't know. So didn't love the ending, but like if you're just looking for a really quick, I don't know where my voice just went. So if you're just looking for like a quick little thriller, it did the job. It felt more like it could be a beach read because they're on the beach all the time. It's not like, you know, edge of your seat, biting your nails kind of thriller, but honestly, I think it kind of wiggled me out of a funk. So if you have this on hand, it helped me out. So yeah, that was my month. It kind of went from like okay to really bad to okay again. So yeah, I would say, what do I think? I think that Gallant, Chronology of Water, and Down Comes the Night would be my favorites of the month. I also just started reading, oh shoot, where is it? Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, I just started reading Pure Color because I was seeing it everywhere, and the little snippets of it that I saw, I knew that I was going to want to underline a lot, so I got the physical copy. And this is another one, I've read like a quarter of it. This is another book that I think that the plot doesn't matter. It's more about the writing and some of the ideas that get slipped in. You get probably like a paragraph of plot and then the author just kind of goes off. I just wanted to share like an interesting idea. I've read 50 pages, I've underlined probably like 20 of these pages. There's this kind of idea of the world is God's creation, right? But it's like his first draft. And she has this quote talking about how this is like the first draft of existence, right? And so it says like, here in the first draft of existence, we crafted our own second drafts, stories and books and movies and plays, polishing our stones. I just thought that is very interesting, that like we create worlds within our worlds and sometimes worlds within worlds and stuff like that. And that's like the second draft of existence, you know? I found that really interesting. This book is filled with just lots of little bits like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it so far. So this is what hopefully will be my first read of April. That is it. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you think. Honestly, like a big chunk of my month was taken up by those in total 5 hours worth of YouTube content for you about Crescent City. Do you see? You can't really see him, can you? But he's there. Yeah, so I feel like now I was just so sucked into that world. So now I can like live again, you know? So yeah, I will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much. Thank you to Book of the Month. Once again, my code CARI for your first hardcover new released book for $9.99. Oh my god. So yeah, I will see you then. And if you need some springtime in Korea content, you can head over to my main channel. I'll link it down below. I've got lots of cherry blossom stuff for you. So, okay. See you then.